you for joining me tonight on my program, Kingdom Ministries. You know, God has given me a word for His people tonight. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity just to visit with you tonight, to give you a message that God has given in my spirit, one that I believe is meant for many tonight. And I pray that you'll stay with me and let's go forward as we study the Word tonight. I've entitled my message, Are You Sure That You Want to Walk on Water? Are you sure that you want to walk on water? My message is going to be taken from the book of Matthew, chapter 14, verses 22 through 33. It's a lot of reading, but it tells a story, and nobody tells it better than Jesus. Matthew 14:22, immediately Jesus made His disciples get into the boat and go before Him to the other side, while He sent the multitudes away. And when He had sent the multitudes away, He went up on the mountain by Himself to pray. Now when evening came, He was alone there. But the boat was now in the middle of the sea, tossed by the waves, for the wind was contrary. Now in the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went to them, walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw Him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, "It's a ghost!" And they cried out for fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Be of good cheer. It is I. Do not be afraid." And Peter answered Him and said, "Lord, if it's you, you command me to come to you on the water." So He said, "Come." And when Peter had come down out of the boat, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw the wind was boisterous, and he cried out, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, saying, "Lord, save me." And immediately Jesus stretched out His hand and caught him, and said to him, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased. Then those who were in the boat came and worshiped Him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." Now, just scriptures above this, before this, we see what had taken place before Jesus commanded His disciples to get into the boat. They had just participated with Jesus in a miracle working ministry. Jesus had just fed the 5,000 men, plus women, plus children, with 5 loaves and 2 fish. Now the disciples had said, "How can we do that?" And Jesus just simply said, "Bring me what you got. Bring me what you got." You see, Jesus, He really isn't in the counting of what we have, but do bring Him what you have. He's going to work the miracle with what you have. I believe that's suddenly important. Listen for just a moment. He will work the miracle for you with what you have. He fed 5,000 plus women and children with what they had. They had participated and watched Christ do something so miraculous, so big, that their minds, I'm certain, they couldn't wrap their mind around it. I have a feeling if Peter could stand here today, he'd have trouble explaining it to us. How did those fish multiply in their hands? What happened? He probably couldn't explain it to us today, except to just say, it was God. There was a miracle before our eyes. Now, these same disciples have been sent in the boat to go to the other side, and Jesus goes off alone to pray to the Father. It doesn't give us a clue really what He prayed about there, but I have a feeling it was probably 2 things. One was, "Thank you, Father. Thank you, Father, for feeding the 5,000. And the other was, "I'm ready for my next assignment." You see, when we get a big miracle in our life, sometimes we sit down and we almost forget to move forward. But Jesus, always being the model, showed us, go to the next one. I've got another miracle waiting for you. The disciples are in the boat, and suddenly the winds begin to come up, and the boat is being tossed around like nothing. You know they had to become fearful. Now, if that wasn't enough, they look out, and here comes Jesus walking on the water toward them. Well, they know in their mind, man doesn't walk on water. What's going on? And they said, it's got to be a ghost. Jesus, it's me. It's me. Don't be afraid. So often when we ask Jesus for something and he does it, we can become afraid, but he doesn't want us to. Jesus had shown them a miracle. He was showing them more of himself. Now then, Peter, he does something here that gave me a little bit of an insight into Peter's thinking. Even when Jesus had just said, it's me, don't be afraid, and they heard his voice, Peter still wanted to check it out. He says, if it's you, Lord, bid me to come out and walk with you on the water. You know, I don't think Peter really thought that through, because walking on the water is not something Peter's ever been known to do. This is brand new, and the winds are blowing. But he said, if it's you. Now, when you, in the Word, in the Bible, when you see the word if, it's either tied to a condition or doubt. I have a feeling that although there was a condition, if this is you, bid me, I have a feeling that there was a doubt there. So before ever stepping out of the boat, he hadn't got rid of all of his doubt yet. That's Dee Levens' thinking. He said, if it's you, bid me to come. Jesus says, come. Do you remember, if you've been a Christian for a while, do you remember going down to the altar, maybe after a missionary had come and spoke at the church? Do you remember going and saying, Lord, I'll be the missionary. I'll go to Kenya. I'll go to the Philippines. I'll go to India. I'll go to wherever you want to send me, Lord. I'll just do whatever you want to send me to do. And we're young. And we say, Lord, send me. But he doesn't send you right then. And life begins to happen. Maybe you get married. Maybe you have children. You have jobs. You went to college. You have jobs. Did you mean that prayer back then? Did you mean that prayer? It's not easy to have that kind of a prayer spoken, and then you just assume God wasn't ever going to use you in that fashion, so you move on. And then he says, come. Come. Oh, well, God, I have obligations now because, you know, I've got a job and family and kids and well, you know, did you mean it? Did you really mean that you were willing to step out of the boat? Now, to Peter's credit, he did step out of the boat. But I want us to look first at what was in the boat. I think that I would ask, do you think it was comfortable? No, it's going like this. His life was not exactly in the best of situation right then. But he wasn't alone. They were all about to die as far as they knew. There was not a comfortable situation going on, but it was one that they knew at least how to hold on to. They at least knew to bail the water over and hold on. That he knew. He had been trained. That he knew. But to get out of the boat, let's think about that. He's probably been sitting, maybe bailing water, but he's sitting and holding tight. And he said, Jesus, if that's you, bid me to come on the water with you. Jesus says, come on. Okay, so what's the next thing Peter has to do? He's got to get up, folks. He's got to get up And he may have to, because of the winds, he may have to go and catch a hold of the side. And now he's got to climb over, and he's got to climb down to the water. He's asked Jesus, and he's excited. He's excited. He's asked Jesus to let him come and walk with him. He climbs over the boat. Now, he puts his foot on the water. It does not say he swam. The Bible clearly says Peter began to walk on water out to Jesus. Peter was experiencing a mighty miracle. Peter should have, in the natural, climbed out of the water and began to swim toward Jesus. And when he got to Jesus, he could have said, Jesus, pull me up. I want to walk here with you. But he got down and he began to, with his eyes focused on Jesus. His eyes were focused on Jesus. He didn't waver. He got down and he began to walk. A mighty, mighty miracle. One he could not do on his own. Are you in a situation where you've asked Jesus to bid you to come? You need him. You need a miracle. But things, when God calls you, things began to hit at you, obligations. You know, I began to wonder, well, what would we call our circumstances? Because the circumstances surrounding Peter, before he got his eyes off of Jesus, they were there. When Peter was walking on the water, the seas were in a helter-skelter mess. They were blowing back and forth, and still Peter walked on water with Jesus out there coming toward each other. Nothing changed except Peter began to think, wait a minute, well, the winds are blowing. What was I thinking? Oh my goodness, I can't do this. I'm not supposed to do this. He took his eyes off of Jesus and put them on the circumstances. The winds were blowing. The disciples may have said to him, Peter, are you crazy? Don't you go out there. Have you ever had other Christians tell you, are you crazy? Don't you do that? If God told you, then you obey God. Listen to counsel, but if God told you, obey God. You know, Peter stepped out and it could have meant certain death, but if he'd stayed in, it might have meant death too. God had him covered. We know that. We can see it from the scripture. Peter put his eyes on his circumstances and he fell flat. And he had to cry out, Jesus, save me. And we know Jesus immediately saved him and put him back in the boat. I wondered today, I'm not out on the water, walking on water. I'm not there. But maybe I need something. And there are circumstances that I began to think, Lord, what would be a circumstance for people today? What would keep us from thinking it's possible to have a miracle? Well, health issues. Has the doctor told you that this is your last year to live? Has the doctor told you it's hopeless? You're going to live with this. You can't do anything about it. Is that the word you've received? Or how about financial issues? You know what? Financial issues are just such a stress bearer. Oh my goodness, they just seem to press you down from every angle. Financial. How about relationships? Relationships break your heart. They make you feel broken. And before long, your mind is just staying there. Family issues, brother against brother, sister against sister, and the family goes on. Career issues. There are circumstances that just seem to flutter like a storm all around us. And yet God bids you to come and to walk on the water. Hebrews 12, 1 and 2. Therefore we also, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us, And let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Let us lay aside every weight that so easily besets us. Peter had to lay aside every circumstance that he knew to get over that boat and to walk. For you and I to receive our miracles, let me tell you, there will be weights that will suddenly appear that you didn't even think existed until you began to step out for a walk with God. God's got a miracle for you, but you, and only you, will know which weights are weighing you down. It can be so simple. It can be a game. It can be the phone. It can be anything that you realize that every time you sat down to be with God, that interruption came. And you said, I'll be right back. And you go and you deal with this. Instead of saying, I'll be right back, and you stay with the Word, you see, that became a weight that weighed us down so that we didn't get the full feeding of the Word. Lay aside every weight which so easily besets you. We have busy lives. Oh, our calendar just gets so full that this week alone I had 3 double bookings. I'm going, okay, which one do I need? I have to go here. No, well, we have busy lives, folks. We're all in that together. But there is nothing that is so important that it takes preeminence over God. Put God first in your lives. You know, you want something, you need something, and yet we're putting God second? That doesn't add up. I mean, I'm just being truthful. That doesn't add up. If you need something, by all means put God first. But then keep doing it. Jesus went back to the Father to have an alone time after the miracle. Don't stop even after God comes through, because He will. You know, Satan comes at us. Oh, how he likes to mess with us. In John 10:10, the thief does not come except to steal, to kill, and to destroy. But Jesus said, I have come that you may have life, and that they may have it more abundantly. More abundantly. Satan's going to do everything he can to steal your miracle, to kill that miracle. In fact, I've got a message written trying to steal my miracle and kill my miracle. Don't let Satan kill your miracle. Have you stepped out today? Have you said, God, I'll do what you want me to do? And He says, come. And then we say, oh, well, God, you know, I can't. You know, that's just not a right answer, folks. When God says come, you need to come. Obey Him. Obey Him. The disciples had, let's look at those disciples. When they got into that boat and the storms kept going like this, were the disciples out of order? Had they disobeyed Jesus? Or had they obeyed Him? Now, this is an important point. You see, sometimes we think when the world is going like this and our lives are being tossed around, well, I must have done something wrong. Maybe God, show me what I did wrong. And that's an okay prayer. But look at the disciples. Jesus told them to get in the boat and go to the other side. What did they do? They got in the boat and they were headed in the direction Jesus sent them. In other words, they obeyed. But if they obeyed, and if we obey, shouldn't our life just be tranquil? Everything flows like it's supposed to. No double booking on our busy calendars. Why, everything is just, no illness. This trip to the doctor, what's that about? I'm obeying God. Why is that happening? Sometimes, folks, when things are just going like this, but we know that we did exactly what God told us to do, then I want you to wait for your miracle. You see, the disciples, in their obedience, they got to have an experience of a lifetime. An experience like one that they'll see in heaven. They could be transported out there on that water in the midst of a storm. It had no bearing on Jesus at all. It didn't bother him. Now, he made the winds to be still because he had that kind of authority. But it didn't bother him. He wasn't bothered. They were. Jesus told them to go the other side. They had obeyed, and yet their world became topsy-turvy. When he gets back into the boat with Peter, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" I thought about this. Sometimes we become so fearful that we're going to drown. Oh, it's going to be bad. I know we're supposed to be drowning right now. Oh, this is bad. We're out on the water. We're about to drown. Look, look. Now, the whole time I'm talking to you folks, I'm not drowning. But in my mind, I think this should be a drowning situation. I should be going under. I'm not under. I can see Jesus, and he's got his eye on me. I'm not under. But I began to convince myself I'm supposed to be drowning. O ye of little faith, why did you doubt? Get your mind off of that drowning that you're supposed to be. I'm supposed to be dead. This isn't supposed to be working. The doctor said I'm supposed to be done. The doctors told you what they knew, but God tells you what he knows. Which promise do you want today? Man's promises can't produce life. Oh, they can try to help, but they can't produce life. Stand on the Word. Do some water walking with Jesus for a little while. Now then, Peter, he said, and when they got in the boat, the wind ceased, and then they all came and they worshiped him. Now, I want you to know something. When Jesus told Peter, this was a two-person conversation. It's Peter calling out to Jesus, and it's Jesus responding back to Peter. Now, when this conversation is going on, this is a two-person conversation. It's not a group conversation. And when Jesus said, "Come," it wasn't a group call. Sometimes we, and we are alone, are the ones that he said, "You do it. You do it." Are you waiting for everybody else to jump out there with you? If you are, you're going to miss your miracle. If God tells you to step out of your boat and walk with him, maybe he's answering a call that you left back at the altar as a little girl or a little boy. "Lord, I'll go where you want me to go, and I'll do what you want me to do." I prayed that. Oh my goodness, I must have been 9, 10, 12 years old. I was young. "Lord, I'll go where you want me." Every time a missionary came, I was praying the same prayer. "I'll go where you want me to go." He didn't call me to go until I was 62. And at age 62, he sent me to Kenya, and I went 6 times to Kenya, 2 times to Uganda, once to Australia, and once in the Philippines after I was 62. And God began to show me things that my eyes had never seen before. But when he says, "Now, come," oh, what an experience. Now, I wondered, and I like to live this out. What if Peter had gone out and he hadn't looked at the circumstances? What if Peter had gone out and he began to walk with Jesus on the water? He went all the way out, and now these two are holding hands, and they're just walking on the water. I can just see Peter now saying, hey, y'all come on out. Come on. This is really great. Come on out. Maybe, just maybe, another one might have had the courage to step out too. Another one steps out the boat. Now remember, I'm on this journey on my own right now, because the Bible doesn't say this. But I wondered what would happen if we had not taken our eyes off Jesus. You see, if we don't take our eyes off Jesus, miracle is just the beginning. There's another one, and then there's another one, and people are watching you. Oh, they're watching. Don't you know those disciples had their eyes on Peter and Jesus? Wow, look, wow. But if that experience had stayed hand in hand, hand in hand, I just wonder, would there have been more that have gotten out there on that water? You know, he could have walked them all the way to the shore. Instead of putting them back in the boat, I think when he said, oh, you of little faith, I think he said, you know, you really missed it, guys. We could have had so much fun. Wow. I came out here walking, and y'all could have walked with me. Oh, we shortchange our own miracles. I ask you tonight, are you seeking God for your own miracle? Have you got a need upon your life and you say, Father, I don't know what to do. I'm looking at my circumstances. I hear the doctor's reports. I see the checkbook. I heard my employer telling me they don't need me anymore. I've got bills to pay. I don't know what to do. If in the midst of all of this, God says, come, are you willing to lay everything aside and have an experience with Him like you've never, ever had? You know, before Jesus left, He told them of an experience that I would challenge you tonight. He said, go into the upper room and tarry until you be endued with power from on high. That was to His disciples and to every generation that followed. So I challenge you tonight. Go into your upper room and you stay there until God endues you with power from on high. Join me next week and let's keep marching. God bless you.
We hope you've enjoyed Kingdom Ministries with Reverend Dee Levens. For more from Dee, read The Long, Long Night, The Story of Destiny, and Echoes from God, a Christian study book for growing deep and strong in the faith. Connect with Dee and purchase her books at deelevens.com. Send an email to deelevenstv@gmail.com or text Dee at 254-681-6099.